Medical experts in South China recently detected the nucleic acid of the novel coronavirus. Brazilian oil workers begin strike following continued government attacks on the sector. Arce and David Choquehuanca register as mass candidates for president and vice president of Bolivia. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Cristina Escobar. Medical experts in Guangzhou, South China, recently detected the nucleic acid of the novel coronavirus on a doorknob in the home of a diagnosed patient, according to the Disease Control and Prevention Center in this Chinese province. This is the first time scientists have discovered the virus in an external environment. The director of the Guangdong Provincial Disease Control and Prevention Center, Deng Weimin, informed on Monday that the surface of the object that had tested positive for nucleic acid had been contaminated with the virus. Research on the infectiousness of the sample and whether it's live virus or virus fragment is on the way. According to the center, researchers will also take samples from other objects prone to contamination, including mobile phones, keyboards, and faucets. And Chinese health authorities have reported that the coronavirus death toll has risen to 362. The National Health Commission also noted that 17,400 people have been infected. Meanwhile, the first death outside of China has been reported in the Philippines. The victim was identified as a 44-year-old Chinese national who arrived in the country on January 21st from the city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak. Meanwhile, China's National Health Commission says it has made progress in the race to find a cure for the novel coronavirus. The virus is currently being treated with a combination of antivirals and other measures, as there is no cure or vaccine. Trials are centered on experimental antiviral drugs, remdesivir, developed by the pharmaceutical firm Gilead Sciences. On Monday, the Health Commission reported that the trials were being carried out in multiple hospitals in the central city of Wuhan.
For the current situation of the epidemic outbreak, the treatment work has attracted wide attention, and we also have made a lot of new research. So far, one treatment is lopinavir and ritonavir, and traditional Chinese medicine. Some clinical trials are conducted to collect data. Recently, we found another drug called remdesivir, and several medical institutions are conducting clinical trials on the drug to study its safety and efficacy.
And Chinese authorities have completed the construction of an emergency 1,000-bed hospital in Hubei province, set up specifically to treat coronavirus patients. Work began on the Washenshan Hospital on January 23rd and was completed on Sunday morning. The hospital has been handed over to the Ministry of Health and started admitting patients on Monday. A second emergency hospital with capacity of 1,600 beds is expected to be completed on Wednesday. Chinese authorities have denounced the decision by a number of countries to deny entry to people who have visited China in the past 14 days. Beijing's United Nations Ambassador for Disarmament Affairs, Li Song, said such measures will not stop the spread of the virus, but only lead to increase in stigma and discrimination against Chinese nationals. Earlier on Monday, the World Health Organization said that these measures to attempt to halt the spread of the coronavirus unnecessarily interfere with international travel and trade.
The WHO's temporary recommendations do not recommend any travel and trade restrictions. We are all in this together. It concerns every country and everyone in this world. During the 2014 Western Africa Ebola outbreak, A high-level UN panel pointed out that taking excessive international travel restriction measures may lead some countries affected by the virus to stop voluntarily reporting information to the WHO out of fear of being impacted by potential restrictions. As mentioned by Dr. Tedros, we need facts, not fear. We need science, not rumors. We need solidarity, not stigma.
Meanwhile, the WHO has launched a campaign to combat the spread of false information surrounding the coronavirus. The UN Health Agency reported it is working with social media firms to address the misleading, unverified, and false information being spread online about the virus.
Combat the spread of rumors and misinformation. To that end, we have worked with Google to make sure people searching for information about coronavirus see WHO information at the top of their results.
In France, about 500 people, including hospital staff, formed a human chain in front of a Paris hospital on Sunday to highlight a lack of resources in public hospitals. The protesters who gathered in front of the Robert Debré hospital expressed its problem with the lack of resources and accused the French government of underfunding the facility and public hospitals across the country. Last week, 28 doctors resigned from their administrative roles at the hospital amid degrading working conditions.
I think the government, unfortunately, does not care about the human chain. But it is symbolic for us. The users are with us, and we will continue to do as many demonstrations and actions as possible. Many of us doctors in charge of the department continue to resign en masse. Many of us also think that it can go further, as do we caretakers. There will come a time when we will also end up jumping ship.
An Air Canada flight has made an emergency landing at Madrid airport after the plane suffered what the airline described as an engine issue. The Boeing 767, carrying 128 passengers, spent almost 5 hours circling the southeast of Madrid in an effort to burn fuel before landing. The engine issue occurred shortly after takeoff when parts of the landing gear fell off into one of the engines, according to Air Canada. A tire also reportedly ruptured on takeoff, one of 10 on this model of aircraft. The incident unfolded just hours after a drone sighting shut down the same airport for over an hour, causing delays and forcing authorities to divert 26 flights. Coming up, workers from Brazil's state-owned oil and gas company Petrobras began strike action on Welcome back. Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has said that the major energy agreement signed with Venezuela back in August 2018 had to be rescinded because of U.S. sanctions imposed by the government, which makes impossible to do business with PDVSA. Speaking at the country's 2020 Energy Conference, Rowley said progress in the development of the unitized Laura Manatee field, the gas and oil field located in the Atlantic Ocean, has been impeded by the sanctions imposed by the U.S. government, which inhibits U.S. companies from doing business with Venezuelan oil companies PDVSA. He went on to say that as a consequence, the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the government of Venezuela have agreed to the independent development by each government of the field within the Luran-Manatee cross-border that falls within its marine area. Workers from Brazil's state-owned Petrobras, the biggest oil and gas company in the country, began an indefinite national strike on Saturday. Brazilian workers are protesting against the closure of a fertilizer plant, resulting in the loss of 1,000 jobs and the company's failure to comply with a collective labor agreement. According to the Unified Federation of Oil Workers, the strike action is already active in 10 states of Brazil and affects 12 refineries. The policy of the Jair Bolsonaro administration, focused on selling off state-run companies and shutting down strategic Petrobras plants, is having a huge impact on workers. The company announced massive layoffs and actions that attack workers' rights, thus also affecting the Brazilian people and the country's development. And we stay there because heavy rains have left 67 deaths in this country since last Thursday. Hundreds of cities of this South American nation remain in a state of emergency. The movement of people affected by dams has blamed the collapses of the multinational Minera Vale in 2015 and 2019 as responsible for the historic floods in the state of Espírito Santo and Minas Gerais due to the waste accumulation in the ground. Social movements and politicians have stressed the lack of investments in public policies towards this situation. Bolivia's movement towards socialism candidates are launching their campaign in the city of La Paz alongside social movements and the CUP Labor Federation. Social movements are gathering at the Plaza San Francisco at noon local time. From there, they'll march together with Luis Arce, Catacora and David Choquehuanca to register as candidates for the office of President and Vice President for the May 3rd election at the headquarters of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. An outpouring of support is expected to attend today's rally from the city of El Alto, and a larger campaign launch is set to take place in Sacaba, Cochabamba, on Saturday. Meanwhile, a Bolivian judge has ordered 6 months of preventive detention for Evo Morales' attorney, Patricia Hermosa. Hermosa, who's also pregnant, is being accused of sedition and terrorism for carrying the former president's documents in order to register him as a candidate for the Legislative Assembly. Morales has since said he will denounce the de facto authorities' theft of his personal documents internationally. The former president added that he will also file a report with the Bolivian prosecutor's office for aggravated robbery. Lawmaker for the movement towards socialism, Sonia Brito, spoke to the media about this latest act of judicial persecution.
The eyes of the world are on Bolivia, and the eyes of the world are on Bolivian justice, and they are really seeing the utter disgrace that is the type of justice that we have.
The National Liberation Party secured the majority of votes in Costa Rica's municipal elections on Sunday. The NLP saw in undisputable victories regions as León, Cortés, Tilarán, Zarcero, Dota, Tibás, Corredores and San Ramón, where it gained more than 50% of the votes. This election took place in the midst of tensions between workers and the government following the anti-strike law approved last January, which limits workers' rights to demand better jobs, pay and conditions. The election process was held in an atmosphere of calm. The elected candidates will take possession of their post in May 1st. The 2020 Iowa Democratic caucuses to determine the candidates for the presidency and vice presidency began this Monday. The Iowa caucuses are the first nominating contest in the Democratic Party presidential primary and thus perceived as an important indicator of the eventual candidate for the White House. Only registered Democratic Iowans can vote through their physical presence at their designated pressing caucus site. Iowans who have not registered as Democrats before the caucus day can still register as such on caucus night itself at their designated precinct and thereby gain full voting rights at the same event. The latest polls in Iowa reveal Democratic aspirants Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden as favorites with almost 25% support.
The election is about two fundamental issues. First, it is absolutely imperative for the future of this country that we defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. Tomorrow night is the beginning. It is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
Ecuador's President Lenín Moreno has suggested that women tend to complain about sexual harassment when it comes from ugly people. While giving a speech to investors in the city of Guayaquil, President Moreno said men were under threat of being denounced for harassment. His comments prompted immediate outrage from women's rights activists and others, such as ruling party Congresswoman Soledad Buendia, who tweeted that the president justifies and reproduces violence against women. Moreno later tried to apologize. In 2019, at least 60 cases of feminicide were recorded in Ecuador, while over 65% of women have experienced some form of harassment.
We, men, at permanently risk of the danger of being accused of harassment. And I see that women, many times, denounce harassment. That's true, and it's good that they do so. But at times, with harassment, they torment ugly people. That is to say, that the harassment is when it comes from an ugly person. But if the person looks good according to the standards, they tend not to think necessarily that it is harassment. And at my age, it would not be harassment, but sexual harassment.
Meanwhile, Ecuadorians reacted to President Lenin Moreno's remarks on sexual harassment, describing his comments as misguided and inappropriate.
My first impressions regarding the statements of President Lenin Moreno, it seems to me that many times they are misguided. I believe that harassment is not due to the fact that you are good looking.
In this case, it is not necessary to be neither handsome nor ugly or anything. Everyone suffers harassment, and the president's opinion have nothing to do with reality.
The Association of Indigenous Cabildos of North Cauca in Colombia has reported the murder of an indigenous guard as violence increases in this country. Javier Girón was shot 3 times as he entered an establishment in Santander de Quilichao, according to residents. The Association of Indigenous Cabildos calls for national and international solidarity as there has been an upsurge in the number of killings occurring in northern Cauca in the last year. The representative of the UN High Commission on Human Rights in Colombia reported the agency's following up on this latest homicide. With the support of the Uruguayan Carnival Union, the project More Carnival tries to create an alternative event so that people can enjoy the popular festival for free. More details in this report.
To return to the carnival of before, back when there was no competition and where every neighborhood enjoyed the popular art and excellence of Uruguay, following that dream, several Uruguayan carnival groups supported by the Uruguayan Carnival Union created the proposal Más Carnaval.
Más Carnaval es un proyecto que surge.
Más Carnaval is a project that arises from a group of comrades, all of us who have been going to the Uruguayan traditional carnival for years. It's based on concerns to generate more participatory spaces, more open, with fewer regulations. We started to crank out something that today is becoming reality.
The idea was to organize alternative carnival shows which could be replicated in all neighborhoods where there was no official competition between groups, no prizes, no sponsors, and no commercial logic whatsoever.
It's an idea to go back to the old carnival, but to make it a 21st century version, not to go back to the past, but to make something in the future. That's better. If there are 200 stages before, well, now there are 500 stages. Every neighborhood could have a stage, every group, every collective.
This year the groups organized with a Capurro Cultural Collective and agreed on a day of popular art where they could also learn about solidarity and cooperative economic initiatives.
When the possibility of joining the networks of Más Carnaval arose, we realized that what was coming was very big, because planting a milestone like this in something as big for Uruguay as the Carnival is something that we could not be left out of, because it has much to do with what we believe, which is to build more opportunities.
For many, the best thing about the project is that it allows many Uruguayans who could not pay for tickets or move to other neighborhoods to enjoy a high-quality show near their home.
Because the truth is that the Carnival is feel it. I always used to say it's not the same when they take you to the stage as watching it on TV. Sometimes because of an economic issue or a remote issue, because there aren't stages in all neighborhoods. That doesn't always reach the people, so I think it's very good.
The Mass Carnival project brings together 28 carnival groups that do not participate in the official competition. They are grouped together by the Union of Carnival Workers of Uruguay, which seeks to dignify the work of carnival workers and give back to the people a show that is becoming more and more distant from the people.
We're taking one last break, but coming up, at least 20 people have been killed in an stampede in Tanzania. Stay with us.